And we welcome a former Fighting Saints assistant coach, goalie coach. At one point, I think in my first year, you were doing just about everything on the hockey ops side. It's Matt Millar now joining us from the confines of his home in California all the way across the country. And Matt, thanks for taking the time to join us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. So first and foremost, I guess I've started most interviews, it feels like, in the last couple months with kind of everyone's shutdown story. And I guess that'll be my first question for you too. When everything started to get shut down with the sporting world, where were you? How did you first find out that things were going to change pretty rapidly?
We were at the Toyota Training Center where the Reign practice, and the Reign and the Kings share a facility. So we had some management, Glenn Murray, who's kind of the head of development, and a couple other guys pop into the coaches' room, and then had NHL Network on. I think we were getting ready to hit the ice. I think it was for a quick escape before a game, and I think we were almost ready to go on the ice, probably 15, 20 minutes out, and Glenn came down and said, "We're shutting it down. We're sending everybody home. Everybody in the front office is headed home too." So at that point, we didn't really take much with us because we didn't know how long we were going to be gone. So it's kind of like, "Oh, we'll be out here for a few days, and wait to see what happens. We'll come back maybe in a week or two." And then that turned into a couple months. So just been pretty quiet here in California. Try to get out of the house a little bit, go on some drives. If you're familiar with California, I've gone on some longer drives with my wife up to Big Bear and Lake Arrowhead, kind of day trips. And then we live probably about a 5-minute bike ride or drive from the beach. So we drive up and down Pacific Coast Highway and just try to get out of the house as much as we can. That's all we're doing right now. I think I've been on the ice one time with the Junior Kings goaltender. I had to wear a face shield, and that was interesting to have that on and try to coach with the full surgical face shield on. So it's been interesting, but all in all, it's been really positive. It's given us time to connect with our prospects. We do a lot of Microsoft Teams calls, really get to know them, and it's fun to have them. We have 2 guys in Europe and then 2 guys in Canada. So Bill and I will hop on the Teams call and be able to chat with them and see their face. And I think it's built a lot of really good relationships, not only within our goaltending group here, but also within the goaltenders as well, to be able to talk to one another and get to know one another. It's a lot of fun.
You mentioned those calls, and everyone seems to be doing calls like that now. It's the new normal. But at the start, like you said, we'll leave for a week, then we'll come back. I think everyone sort of had that mentality, didn't realize how long this would last. It's still carrying on right now. So how long did it take for you guys to settle into the new routine, the new normal? How long did it take to get comfortable with what you had to do?
Bill was pretty proactive on hopping on the Microsoft Teams and setting these calls up. I think the junior guys that aren't signed probably meet with them once a week on the Teams, and I think it just started out as checking in to make sure they were safe, they were healthy, they were at least trying to do something, whether it was biking or running or getting out, and just making sure they're staying active. And then it turned into having fun questions and conversations with them about what's your favorite meal that your billet cooks, and what's the worst meal that your billet has cooked. Like little fun things like that let the guys talk about their experience, and allows Bill and I to talk about our experiences too. So I think we settled into it pretty quick. I think we just had to figure out the length of meeting. Once for a little while it was once a week, but then we kind of stretched it out to once every 10 days. And I'd say probably about 2-3 weeks in, we're in a pretty good groove of doing those Teams calls. And then it gave me some time to connect with some of the prospects, so that you could kind of break down their season and debrief and really get a feel of what they felt went well, what they really want to work on, some areas they're interested in. And I think it's generated a lot of really good conversation and allowed us to have a pretty good plan moving forward. I think the guys are really excited to get back on the ice because not very many guys have been on the ice, but I think we've also got a really good plan in place for these guys when they come back. And I think that's exciting.
In general, when we talk about settling in, it's been roughly a year for you now in this new position. How was it to settle into the new position, and how have you liked things with the Kings organization thus far?
The organization's unbelievable. It's the best in the world. I grew up watching the Kings. My dad was part of the Kings. And just the leadership that's here with Rob Blake and Nelson Emerson and Glenn Murray, and that comes down to the NHL staff with Todd McClellan, and then our staff as well. The guys that I'm around every day, I'm so fortunate to be around them and be learning from them, and I'm excited to continue to learn and grow in this organization as a coach. Um, it, I'm living pretty much in the same city that I grew up in, so I think the transition away from the rink was pretty easy for me. It's been a little harder for my wife. She's from the Midwest, so she's used to the seasons and used to a little slower style of life, where California can get busy and hot real quick. So I think that was a big adjustment for her. Adjusting to the lifestyle as a pro coach was a bit of a it took a couple months for me to really find my rhythm, and luckily Cal Peterson and Matt Millar and Cole Kaler, the goalies that were kind of here, Kevin Poulin as well, kind of later in the season, were all fantastic to work with. The assistant coaches, Yaroslav Modry, Chris Height, and then the head coach, Mike Stothers, were fantastic at really being patient with me and helping me learn and allowing me to grow and have a voice on a staff as a first year guy. So I thought that was incredible, that the experience where I was able to have an opinion and have a say, but also have some guidance from them as well. And I think the guidance was really good. It was good instruction. The stuff that they gave me was very timely, and I think having Bill Ranford here, obviously won 2 Stanley Cups as a player, won 2 Stanley Cups as a coach, and learning from his transition from playing to coaching, and coaching a Hall of Fame goaltender, Jonathan Quick, and working with guys like Jack Campbell, and then now Cal Peterson coming up, and guys aren't here that I still stay in contact with that were part of the organization, like Dusty Emu. There's the number of guys that have been around this organization that are willing to reach out and help people learn and invest in people is incredible.
You mentioned the patience that they had with you. Was there any kind of big learning curve that you had to adjust to at this next level?
Yeah, I think, that's I think the biggest thing that I had to learn was to speak up, and whether my opinion it wasn't right or wrong, it was just my opinion. And I think sometimes I got tripped up with trying to give the maybe what I thought was the right answer, instead of just giving them what is the right answer. I don't think about how it's going to be perceived by coach ABC or management XYZ. Just give your opinion on the guy and your experience, which is why you're here. You've been hired for a reason, because of your experience, because of your skill set. Don't be afraid to have an opinion, and also don't be afraid to listen and to learn from other people. If you give an opinion and there's other information that comes out, you're totally okay with saying, you know what, that opinion's wrong right now. With new information, with stuff that we've seen, I would have chosen this as a different decision. So let's make it together as a staff. And I think that's the nice thing about this organization, is it's a lot of collaboration, a lot of guys working together in the same direction. So I just needed to have a firmer, stronger voice, and be able to give my opinion readily.
For those Dubuque fans that might not know exactly what you do, if you could break it down to kind of a job description, if you were typing it out on the internet for someone to be hired to, what would the job description be? What does the week in the life of Matt Millar look like?
I'll give you the what is it, the 280 character Twitter description real quick.
Yeah, something along those lines. Changes every time, I feel like.
Yeah. So first and foremost, my responsibility is the development of the goaltenders in the Kings organization. So that's not including Bill. Bill's the goaltending coach for the NHL team. Works with the 2 NHL goaltenders, preps them and preps the players and pre-scouting for all the NHL stuff. And he kind of gives the overall themes for development, and I'm kind of in charge of seeing those themes or skills or tactics, seeing those things through, making sure that there's a plan for them, making sure that the goalies are developing and transitioning and really preparing to be a pro. So a day in the life for me would be, it really is broken down by a month. Usually I'm here for about 3 weeks, and then I go on the road for about a week to any one of our prospects. So we had Jacob Ingham in Kitchener, we had David Renack in St. Cloud State, and then we had Lucas Perrick in Spokane. So, I would spend time going out and visiting those 3 guys, in addition to Matt Millar, who just signed as a young pro, was going back and forth between Fort Wayne and in the ECHL in Ontario, in the ECHL, and then finally Cole Kaler, who'd been in the organization for a few years. So work with those guys where they're at, and then work with the 2 guys that are in the AHL, helping them really transition into pro or making them a better pro. So a lot of development, a lot of work with them on the ice, which is one small part of it, but a lot of it is spending time with them away from the rink, spending time with them and building a relationship with them to help kind of guide them to be a lifelong professional hockey player.
Diving back towards the beginning of your coaching career, how did you start to, I guess, when did you figure out that you wanted to jump into coaching? And then who were a few of the early influences on your coaching style?
I think that I really decided I wanted to be a coach. I think it was one of my last couple of years of college. I'd coached a lot during the summer, just at different various camps, and really enjoyed it. And I wasn't going to be playing a lot my last year of college. They had 2 really good young goalies. And I kind of was like my role is now kind of charged with kind of helping those 2 guys adjust to working with one another, because they're both really good. And, both kind of wanted the net, and there was a little bit of friction there. So helping them be part of a team, but also kind of guiding them in their playing style and just my experience as a player. So our team, did well that year. Those 2 guys played very well, and they continued to play well for the next couple of years. And I felt really rewarding to be able to help those guys, transition into being a part of a winning team and a winning culture. So it was a lot of fun for me to do that. So I think that's when I really got the coaching bug, and I felt passionate because I saw how it affected other people, and I saw their success, which made me excited.
And when you came to Dubuque, I mean, what was the development like for you in that league? Because I think a lot is made of the USHL as a developmental league for the players for obvious reasons. You see all the players who make big jumps to the college level and pro level, but it's a developmental league at every single position, whether it's in the front office or on the bench as well. So what was your development like during your years in the USHL?
Well, I think when Matt Shaw brought me in, I think he was right in saying that this would have been kind of like a master's class for you for hockey. And I think I knew I had a good grasp on goaltending, but needed to learn more about the sport of hockey, about being on a team, being a part of the systems. I'd done a lot of individual goalie coaching and a lot of goalie consulting, but was never on a staff and was never part of a team like I was in Dubuque. So a lot of the things I learned in Dubuque directly translated to being on a staff here in Ontario and working with goalies year round. I'm around them, pretty much more than I'm around my wife during the season. So that helped in Dubuque, knowing your time management and when to say stuff, how to say stuff, when to lay off on guys, when to just let them play. And there's a lot of unique kind of nuances and balancing you kind of have to do when you're around the goalies full time. So I learned a lot of that in Dubuque. And the other thing that was fantastic was I was given the opportunity to do video, which I do now a lot with our goalies, and then also an opportunity to be on the bench, which I'm not on the bench now, but it gave me such an insight and perspective on, being on the bench. It's not an easy thing to do. It's really hard. It's emotional. It's pretty chaotic. So when guys come off the bench and they're emotional and there's things that have gone on and there's a lot of tension, I think I understand that better. And that's a big lesson that I learned is, I'm sitting up in the stands watching the game. I have a lower stress level, I think, or lower, I'm a little further away from the emotion of the game. So when you come down to the locker room, um, you can understand why those guys are pretty heated, or there's a lot of emotion. It's pretty crazy.
You worked with a lot of great goaltenders at your time with Dubuque, and when people see the turnover year after year in the USHL, often it's looked at as a detriment because the team gets a lot of new players in. But now you said you're working with 4 or 5, sometimes 6 different goaltenders. Was that now a benefit to be able to work with that many, maybe slightly different personalities, to be able to mold that to what you're doing now?
Absolutely. Working with a lot of different personalities, a lot of different styles, guys from all over the world. And I think that just benefits your growth, not only as a coach, but as a person, being able to interact with people from all over the world that, sometimes have great English, sometimes don't. You have to find ways to communicate and connect. And I think a lot of that just allowed me to be more comfortable with myself and letting people, letting those goaltenders get to know me, and helping them understand that I really wanted to get to know them too, and wanted to help them grow as goaltenders and as people. And the same applies here. We got um, 2 kids from Canada. Cal Peterson's from actually Waterloo, and then you got Jonathan Quicks from out east, Connecticut, I believe. And then we've got 2 young kids that are coming up. One's from Slovakia and one's from the Czech Republic. So they're from all over the world, and we'll draft another kid who could be from who knows where. So I think that definitely benefits you to have that experience working with a lot of different people and enjoying working with a lot of different people. You learn just as much from people from different cultures as you do from working with people from your own hometown.
And obviously, with all those different personalities, coaching each player is going to differ at least a little bit. How quickly do you find out how you're going to tailor your style of coaching, or is it a constantly evolving process?
I think you hit the nail on the head. I think it's a constantly evolving process. It could be from drill to drill. You just have to kind of feel and communicate and have a relationship built up with that goaltender, so you kind of know where you want that conversation to head, and kind of nudge them towards maybe trying something a little different, or remind them to stay the course. And I think great phrasing by you. I think it evolves. It could evolve shot to shot. you know.
Sometimes it doesn't happen this way, but was there an instance in your career, like one lesson that you learned that immediately you thought, wow, that's something that's going to stick with me for my entire career, that I still implement today, or even maybe a couple instances of that?
Yeah. I think early on, I would come in and I would talk a lot, and it was funny watching video with uh, one of the first goalies that I coached, Christian Fry, and we're watching video, and I start the clip, and I ask a question midway through the clip, and he's like, "Hold on a second, I'm trying to focus." And for me, it was like, it's tough to do 2 things at once. So you have to really let the player learn and lead. And I think you take a lot of your cues from that person that you're working with, and allowing them to learn and giving them space to grow. And I think sometimes being silent and letting that player come to you with questions and concerns is one of the biggest things that I feel that has helped me become a better coach, especially at this level. These guys are so smart. They know their game so well that really a lot of it is just being a sounding board, someone that they can come and talk to about their game, or about the fact they didn't have a good night's sleep last night, or they're having a fight with their girlfriend. All those things go into how you're going to approach that day with that goalie.
Matt, it's been great to catch up with you, and we appreciate you taking the time. One more question, more recent news, but what was the atmosphere like the last couple of days with the Kings jumping up and being able to get the number 2 pick overall in the draft? Some big hockey news that just happens recently.
Yeah, I was watching that with my parents, and I thought it was funny because as the picks went on, I thought for sure LA was going to be pretty early, and it came down to the top 2, and I was like, and I made a kind of a bet with my dad that LA was going to get number 1, and my dad's been around hockey a long time, and he's like, there's no chance. He's like, they want to make this exciting. They want to make it for the fans. They want to get some buzz going about hockey coming back and the play-in games, and sure enough, LA got 2, and a team to be announced got number 1. So I lost a little bit of money there, and was also disappointed because we didn't get the first overall pick. But there's a lot of really good players, and the Kings scouting staff has done we've had meetings with them about the goaltenders, and they have a fantastic plan in place, and they're really prepared. So I think, they're pretty excited to have that number 2 pick. It's better than 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we'll take it.
And one more question. You mentioned the Kings scouting staff. Do you have much contact with a former Fighting Saints player and Birch on that scouting staff?
Yeah, he's actually been on a handful of our calls, just discussing the goalies, because he does, to my knowledge right now, which this may change, but I think he does a lot of free agent and college stuff. And I've had great conversations with him about a handful of different goalies that he's watched, and what he's looking at and what we're looking for. And I think again, just use the word collaboration. There's been a lot of really good conversations about what we're watching, what we're looking for, why we're doing it. Why is it important in development? Why is it important for Bill at the NHL level that the goalie does A, B, and C? And I think those guys that are open to learning and growing, and we also learn from them too. They use terms that aren't quite goalie terms that Bill and I have started to use that we like. So we do have interaction with Brooks. Probably not as much as I'd like. I know he's a busy guy, but the interactions that I have with Brooks are always great. They're unbelievable.
Well, Matt Millar, former coach for the Fighting Saints and now a goalie coach for the LA Kings. Thanks again for taking the time. Stay safe out there in California, and we look forward to hearing from you sooner rather than later.
Yeah, thanks, Jack. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
No problem.